Hello and welcome to the first episode of Life's a Stage with Frida Liu. I'm Frida Liu, by the way, and of course this is Jenn TV. Thank you for joining me today. I hope today's session you'll be able to learn some things from my guests as we go through some life hacks. I want it to be something that's real with whatever's happening with us right now. So recently I launched my book, Life's a Stage. I talked about my growing up years in Brunei. So I would have had a fairly normal family, and the basics like food and shelter, was nothing to worry about. And I often think about my life trajectory, what I'm doing, and how much of my childhood molded me to where I am. So was it nature or nurture or both? And it's very interesting. So my guests this week are two people I know fairly well. One I used to work with for over 10 years, and beyond work, we always talk about home and life growing up. He said he'll do his best not to make me cry today. Okay, he'll do his best. This is of course my ex-colleague and now head of Sunway Future ex-talent, Jeff Sandhu. Okay, Sandhu, I always call him Sandhu at work. My other guest is also someone I've known for a while now. She comes from my second favorite state, Sabah. Of course, my favorite state is Sarawak. She runs a passion project called True Complexion, which is a collection of stories about people dealing with and overcoming issues relating to confidence and the promotion of a positive body image. She's got many awards. She was awarded the Women of the Future Awards Southeast Asia. She's an Eisenhower Global Fellow and Obama Foundation Fellow. And then I was thinking, what more have you done, right? She's also a singer-songwriter, and for a short while, she was also my manager. Ooh, okay. Please help me welcome Rozella Marie. Okay, and depending on how we go today, right, we might have time for Q&A a little later. So we'll see how it goes, right? So I wanted to be very casual. It's a Saturday afternoon. You've decided to spend time here with us. So I'm really glad that you're here. So I'm going to find out. We'll start off easy, right? Maybe tell me what you've been up to and your current project. So we'll start with that. So we'll go with you, Jeff. What have you been up to for the last 8 months since you left us?
Currently I'm heading a new education vertical within Sunway Education Group. So one of the projects that I'm handling is called 42KL, and is trying to provide education for those who need digital skills for the workforce of today, but also the workforce of the future. And also in this whole process, you actually learn a lot about the soft skills, problem solving, critical thinking, and we do this by providing this opportunity for free to anyone above 18. So a lot of individuals today are like out of jobs and is struggling to find a job because they don't fit the market. This is something that I'm quite passionate about in terms of actually giving quality education to those who truly have the passion and the hunger and doing it for free. For those individuals.
It's very interesting, right, what you've done in your life, with radio, and of course I know you were in graphic design before, and now you're in education, so a very interesting trajectory in life.
It's all around.
Okay, and we'll get a little bit deeper with that one. Rozella, my dear, what have you been up to?
Like the work that I do with True Complexion, I actually work with individuals who have different medical conditions, and because of the whole COVID situation, things with True Complexion has changed a lot. I can't really go out because their health is compromised, right? So I've been trying to find different ways of running the project, and also finding different ways to stay creative.
Right.
Like you said, I'm also a singer-songwriter, but no live performances now. So yeah, just really taking the time at home, being creative, doing my own projects, and hopefully launching something.
Okay, so you're going to tell people what True Complexion is.
Basically, it's an advocacy platform. So we celebrate individuals who live with all sorts of differences, disabilities. We talk about mental health issues, body image issues. Yeah, just an all-round platform celebrating being human.
Okay, so because of True Complexion, you won the Women of the Future Award, right? And that was presented by the UK government. Of course, you were the Eisenhower Fellow as well. But the most recent one, you just completed the Obama Foundation as a fellow. So what did you do? And it was great that you could do that because it was like last year. At least that kept you occupied. But what were you doing there?
We were just... we had a lot of series online, where we got to speak to different speakers and different leaders from around the world doing different types of advocacy work. So learning from them what they've been doing differently since the whole pandemic started, and kind of trying to figure out what we want to do in the future.
Right.
Yeah, so basically it's just like a setup for us to see, okay, what do I do next?
Right. I'm going to ask you what you're going to do next. Okay, now, the reason I've invited both of them here is that I know both of them fairly well, right? And maybe you can share a little bit of stories. What was it like growing up? Jeff, don't make me cry.
No, I won't.
Okay.
Not so soon.
Not so soon.
So I came from I would say fairly difficult, because I'm sure there are others who are in a much more different state than I from where I came from. So I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. My mom's a single parent, divorced my dad many years ago, and so when I was like in Form 5. So, but I grew up in a very, very traumatizing childhood. When I was like in high school, even primary school, I always used to have this like weird nightmares. And the funny thing is that I rather live in my nightmares than actually to wake up.
Wow.
Because the reality was a lot more scarier than what my nightmare was, right? So like I used to dream of like being isolated in like one small spot, and there's just vast emptiness, and I was just all alone, lost everything, and it was very scary when you have those dreams as a kid. But when I wake up and go about my day to day, witnessing what my parents, what my dad would do to my mom, that would do to my siblings, my brother and my sister, it was even difficult.
Right.
So it was tough. We ran away from home many times, and then my mom, because she was only a Montessori kindergarten teacher, she was earning like about 700 ringgit or so. You can't support 3 kids with that. So whenever we ran out from home, and my dad will then after a few months will force my mom to come back and say that, oh, he's a changed man and stuff like that. My mom will go back only because she needed us 3 to get out of school and then be sustainable on our own feet, and then maybe things could change. And I was the youngest, so like I was very much at home with my mom most of the time. So my eldest brother, he passed away unfortunately a few years ago, but my eldest brother and my sister, the both of them would be out there really trying to get us out of that situation. But because they were out and they were like doing extra tuition, or they were doing like some side jobs. My brother used to work in like some car park where he would just make some money collecting cars who would just come in and in downtown KL in like childcare area, and my sister would pick up the off modeling jobs or doing stuff running here and there and stuff. So I used to be at home, and that's where I witnessed a lot of the violence that used to happen, right? So it was very scary for me. I remember there were plenty of times I used to just run out of the house and scream across to my neighbor's place and ask them for help. That happened just so often that it felt normal for me, to a certain point. But I won't lie that like every time when I was in primary school, at least I always used to ask myself, and then sometimes I would accidentally blurt it out to my mom. It's like I regret being born in this family, right? So that was, I think, one of the challenges that I had in trying to be okay with my situation. So that then I can actually understand that I can make a change of my own, right? So yeah, it was hard, but I'm sure there are other more difficult stories as well. But
right, okay, and it is difficult for everybody. I mean, we can't compare, right? We can't compare with someone's got it worse than us, because it is so real. Because that's only our point of. And all that, and despite all that, I know that your siblings, your sister's doing very well, right? And your brother, before he passed on, he was also doing very well in advertising and all that, right? So, through all that, your mother obviously raised you all very well.
Well, actually, my mom used to say you should never compare yourself with anyone else, right? Because everyone's just so different. That's where initially I just really, I was like, how can I not compare, right? When I go to school, I see a lot of my, friends who have, came up from proper families, some of them well-to-do and all that, right? So I used to always like, they're the same as me, so I can't help it, right? I will compare. But I think when I was much more mature later on, and I realized actually, my mom was like really that rock And it was because of her, and I was like so close, and seeing how she just, just was so resilient with whatever situation that was thrown at her. She just kept going with her goal, which is, I want to make sure all 3 of my kids, do well.
Right.
And yeah, it's just kudos to her. I have no idea how she did it, because if I were to put myself in her situation,
right. And I met your mom, right? And she's just this quiet person, and it's like, wow, she's
always smiling, which is,
right. She's amazing, right? And I like, so I want to get into a little bit deeper, like maybe a little later, like how that made you decide to succeed in life, but we'll get there later as I calm myself down. Rozella, right? You also, what was it like, for you growing up?
So I have a birthmark on my face, which covers around like 70-80% of my skin, and I grew up in a small town, Kota Kinabalu, where no one else looked like me. Okay. So I guess I was always the alien. I always felt like that. I was actually a very timid and quiet child, mostly staying at home because I didn't have a lot of friends, 1, and 2, even if I go out on the streets, right, strangers would stop me, ask me what's wrong with my face. You'll get people always recommending remedies to my parents and stuff, or saying like, oh, maybe your mom did something wrong during her pregnancy and that's why this happened to you. It's like a family curse and things like that. So it was a really insecure childhood, I think, that I really had. And I struggled with my self-confidence a lot. So I kept to myself most of the time. And I think that's how my love for music and writing and stories, which is what I do in True Complexion as well, right? Telling other people's stories came about, because I was always in my room, locked up there, creating my own little safe space where no one could actually make me feel like I wasn't good enough.
Okay, wasn't good enough. So I know you have very supportive parents, right? I mean, and they mean well, right? And I remember you telling me this story. It stuck to me, how your parents gave you whitening products, right? Thinking that would resolve the issue, right? And how would you have liked them to have addressed the issue differently, with the knowledge they have, and they come from good intentions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe that, my parents saw me struggling. So I actually tried whitening injections at the age of 11. And I've tried all sorts of products, or internally, externally, products and treatments to try to get rid of this birthmark. And I knew that my parents did it because they knew that I was struggling.
Right.
And they wanted to help me the best way. And they thought the solution would be to try and remove this thing that was actually causing me so much pain. But of course, it's a birthmark. You can't really get rid of it, right? And yeah, I think they did the best that they could have done with the information that they had back there, with the access that they had back there. It's not like we are today. We have access to the internet. There's so much of information. We have so much of different movements now happening that we can't be ignorant about things like this anymore, right? I do wish sometimes that, I wonder if things were different if my parents had just said, especially my mom, because she was a little bit hard on me all the time. Just say like, hey, you know what, it doesn't matter. You're fine as you are.
Right.
This is kind of your superpower. Make it you.
Right.
I had to kind of learn that on my own.
Right. And for me, like growing up, I'm the youngest child as well. And I always share this story about how my mother, right, and my parents generally never had any expectations of me, and maybe because I was the youngest child, they were tired of parenting by the time they got to me. So I had a lot of liberty in deciding what I want to do, and I never heard like a boy should do this, a girl should do this. So I've never, and to the best of their knowledge, they never steered me in any work direction. And I discovered that by myself. Maybe if they were a bit more educated, they would have steered me in a certain direction. So I'm really glad that they didn't. And I had, so it's like, and I look at that, I'm thinking like, I'm really blessed that they didn't, right? Because, like I said, just watch out, whatever lah. But I know they love me. So I think we can just sort of move on to the next question. Looking at that as well, you just scroll up the questions, right? I got a teleprompter. Okay. So you, I know Jeff, like you, your mother, and together with your siblings raised you, right? And looking at them as role models besides your mother and your siblings, so what were some of the lessons that you learned from that?
It's tough, right? Because it's like every day you spend so much time with them. So like the best way that I was learning from them was just to see what they do and try to make them proud of what I'm doing, right? My mom and my siblings, my brother and my sister never used to like, sit down and give me advice and tell me like, you should be doing this. I'll be honest, I wasn't a really good student at school, academic-wise. I was horrible, right? I was always like somewhere in the middle.
That's because you find it difficult to concentrate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I was just not really in it, mentally I was just not in it, right? I like Rozella, like I create my own safe space as well, because I feel that's where I'm just a lot more at peace with myself, where I am not surrounded by people that I can, subconsciously then and look at like, I still want to be like them, like I still want to be, going out like holidays and stuff. Like I used to love being by myself. Even actually until today, I still love being alone. Like I'm an ambivert, like, so I prefer being an introvert. But if I have to, then I'll do it. But I think one of the strong moments that I've had where it kind of like clicked into me was when my late brother, we had this like incident at home, and I was just so frustrated with not being able to get involved or do things, and I just wanted it for myself. I was like, at one point in time I became very selfish, like, because I was just so frustrated about everyone's doing their own thing, and I was just always cocooned, and a lot of people will just say like, oh, Jeff's very timid and he's very shy and there's issues with him, probably might need to get him going checked up. I couldn't string a sentence properly, and they used to make fun of, in the sense that
wow, and then you got into radio.
I know it was so strange, right? So they used to like, when I was like young, up until like I was like Form 3, I used to be very attached to my mom.
Right.
That so much so, like, there's always this like, oh, there's probably some part of you still in your mom's belly kind of thing. That's why you're so attached. And I was just very timid, and I was, I just couldn't get away. But I was that because I was so protective of my mom, right? So I knew what she was going through. I've seen, my dad, taking out a knife and trying to stab my mom, kind of stuff, right? So those kind of things was just like every day I used to see it. So one of the things that my brother used to, he told me once, which until today I still kind of live by it, is that, you should always look after the people that you love and never be selfish about it. Never ever, just try to focus on yourself. If you protect the people that you love, you will have the best life ever. It doesn't matter, your happiness is not like dependent in like, your own self. It's more of like that people that you love, right? So I remember he told me, it's like on one of the nights when we were like driving back and stuff, he was like, he kind of like, actually it's like, Jeff, just stop being selfish, right? All you gotta do is just, protect the people that you love, and then just focus on that. Everything else will just fall into place, right? And then obviously like, a few vulgar words here and there, because I was a kid, right? I was like Form 2 and stuff, and I was like, crying and stuff. But I remember like the next day onwards, I think something in me just snapped and realized that from that day onwards, I am just going to make sure that whatever I do has a positive impact to my mom, my sister, my brother. So I think every single decision that I've made afterwards have always made me like, that is my checklist. That's what I will tick the box first if this is the right decision for me to do. If it is, then it gives me a lot of confidence to do it. But I think, my mom was also never really used to like, because I was bad in school. I mean, I used to get like straight A's and stuff. I was struggling, right? But she never used to like, tell me, it's like, you go study harder.
You're in education.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, now I'm in education. So I was like the rebel in education.
Right.
But education is just difficult. There's just one way of learning it back in,
Back
high school.
back in the day. Okay.
High school and primary school and all. It's always, you just gotta memorize the book and then you sit for the exam. I wasn't that student, right? I just do it and then I will, learn from it, right? So like my mom, despite so many pressure from the outside saying that, you know, Jeff really needs help, you know, maybe send him for more tuition, maybe get him to study more. He's always just doing his own things, always on the computer and blah, 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 right? So my mom actually never used to like, you know, like quote me or like stuff, right? Because I think she, you know, that was the one thing that she told me earlier on, it's like never compare, because you're always different, right? So everyone's always different, everyone has their own uniqueness. And I think she just always knew that there's something in me that I will come out at the end of the day, and I will flourish as long as, you know, I'm on that right path, and she knows that I didn't do anything wrong, like, you know, nothing, you know, that goes against the law and stuff. So she always tells me, right, as long as no police comes knocking on my house asking for you, we're good, you know. Like, it was very simple. Her message, I don't know, like, my parents was like, they don't give this kind of, you know, advices that you'll find on Instagram these days. They were very blunt kind of advice. But when you look back, you go like, I know what you're trying to say now. But their advice was just like, as long as there's no cops coming to the house and ask for you, right?
He's not on drugs, he's not in jail.
Just don't do all the stuff. Stay away from all the stuff.
There's no red paint outside my house, okay?
So
you know, if you guys have any questions for Jeff, myself, or Rozella, I mean, just, if you have time, we will go through it. And, you know, so, you know, when you talked about it, right, how you're both introverted, right? I don't know if situation has made you introverted, whether that's really your nature or whatever, but then you all went on to do singer, songwriter, you know, and you got all this, you know, fellowship, and then he was like, you know, I don't like it, and then he was radio, I'm shy, I'm on radio, and now, you know, I didn't like school, now you're in education, right? So when, why did you, you know, decide this path, which is very out there? Right? Okay, we'll start with you, Rozella. I'm a singer-songwriter. You gotta be on stage, hon. Okay.
I mean, I used to love music, you know, ever since I was young, right? I was always writing songs in my bedroom, playing around with music. I had a huge cassette and CD collection. It was something that I really always loved. But I was always, you know, too shy, too afraid. I couldn't even order food at the counter. I was that timid and shy. And it was, I think about maybe 10 years ago, I told myself, you know, I kind of had a little quarter life crisis, trying to decide, you know, what is it I was really unhappy with life. And I was asking myself every day, you know, what is it that you want to do? What makes you happy? And I kind of remembered that I forgot how much I loved writing and songwriting, and I forced myself basically to do my first open mic, and that's how it all started. I think it was just my way of pushing myself out of my own comfort zone, out of my own fear. Yeah. It's not that I always have fun on stage. Sometimes it is like, you know, it is frightening, right? The biggest stage I've performed on, probably in front of like 3,000 people, which is a big deal for someone like me, especially. But yeah, I think I love the music so much. I just get into the zone and people disappear. Okay.
Sandhu, radio. You know, this boy was very quiet, didn't want to talk and everything. And then he went.
Well, I think the radio bit, you know, so when I was young, I used to love designing things because that was like my release, just like how Rozella with, you know, arts, and I think creativity was something that really helped people, like, you know, I probably would say like me and Rozella, but I would assume that a lot of people who probably had this similar, you know, kind of childhood or growing up would find that they would resort to some form of creativity because that's where you can express yourself, right? So I used to do a lot of designing, you know, and I used to love how to, you know, create websites and do all this kind of stuff and just create something out of nothing. And then I realized that, you know, after a while that there's, you know, some of the things that the thoughts that I had in my head were stories that I would love to sort of like put them together and piece it together. And then that radio opportunity came along, and you know, you were one of the first person who actually, you know, we had an interview of, I think, my second round interview or something in BFM, right? And I remember you didn't ask me anything about my experience in journalism. Clearly, I didn't have any. But you actually asked me about my mother, right? So at one point in time, I was like, am I being interviewed for my job, or is it my mom being interviewed for the job, right? So, but it was then actually I started to realize it was my passion of trying to get my thoughts out to, you know, to like the audience in a way that I feel can resonate with a lot of people who probably were like me. And I think that's where I then noticed about a lot of the things that I used to do in radio, and a lot of the feedback that I used to get is like, hey, Jeff, I love your show and stuff. I never used to think of it as like radio and I'm doing a show and I'm talking to like thousands of people, or like, I always just assume it's just me and the guest because you're on radio, right? So we talk to each other, and I love the story that my guest will tell me. And I'm just being me, just being curious. Being the introvert, you're always just to observe people. So I'm observing my guest and what he or she is saying to me, and then I was like, oh, that's very fascinating. So I'm just naturally interested in the story, and that's where then I realized that people actually kind of like have that same. They want that same understanding, or they want someone who can give them that kind of a story. It's not the perfect English, or it's not like it's not like crazy high level kind of stuff. It's just very
3,000 people.
Not 3,000 over.
There's more on radio, trust me.
So it was from there. Then I actually just wanted to try something different, and the education part for me is, especially what I'm doing now, is like I feel really passionate about, because I wasn't good in the conventional education. I could not sit down and memorize books after books and then sit for an exam and pass. I was that type of student who will just the night before the exam I'll study.
Right.
I failed almost all of my SPM subjects, the trials. I failed everything because I just didn't bother, because I was like, trials, what's that got to do, right? And I was like, I'll wait for the exam.
And I guess that's why you connect with it, because it's like probably kids like you, right, who just didn't get on with the conventional way of education, but hey, this is another way of learning.
Yeah, so that's why I felt like there's so many other individuals who are like me, and just maybe were continuously pressured by, unfortunately, society is that, if you don't do well in your SPM or your degree, or you don't have a diploma, there goes your life, right? Like, I only have a diploma in graphic design, but yet, you could still, I was blessed to have people like yourselves and, my current boss and even my former bosses who believed there is something that I could do and contribute. And I feel like now I'm in a position where I can create the awareness that, like, hey, listen, like, you honestly actually, it's not the only pathway.
Right.
To getting a good job or actually creating something out of nothing, right? So it's funny, right? Because we always loud about the people who drop out of college and start their billion-dollar company, and they come out with all kinds of crazy things and stuff. But then yet when your own kid or your own child decides to drop out or not do well, you send them for tuition, you send them for this classes, that classes, and I'm like, why? Maybe it's just not right for your child.
Right.
So I feel like I'm now in this position where I go out and talk about what I'm doing, and we don't look at your background and stuff. If you are capable of doing, the only thing you need is your hunger and passion, because I was that, right? I was just so determined to make a change for my own life that I found that platform that allowed me to do it. So now I want to actually create that more awareness, right? Because when I was in my high school, I used to hang around with my friends who I knew who also had challenges, right? Because we all sort of like resonate with each other.
Right.
But I was just not capable of getting them together and say like, hey guys, don't worry, we got this, right? We can do this together. I was like, what, my problems are big enough already. I don't want to talk to you guys, but I'll be with you guys still, right? But I wish that the one thing that I would probably change is maybe like realizing that, hey, it's fine. We can do this. It doesn't matter, right? Grades are just grades. It's just one way.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I ended up in
hunger and passion, right? That was what drove you. I mean, like, we always love the stories of Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs that didn't graduate, but not with my child,
But the hunger came because of what I lived through, right? For me, like when my dad, when he used to ride a motorcycle to go to his coffee shops, and he was an alcoholic, wife abuser, and all this kind of stuff, right? So I used to, like, my heart would beat so fast and I would tremble in fear whenever I hear his motorbike is nearby the house and he's coming back home. Like, my ears were so in tune with that specific type of sound that I know it is my dad and he's nearby, like he's just around the corner. It's just like 2 houses away. and immediately I would, my palms would be sweaty and I would be afraid, and my mom would immediately just clean up the house very quickly and just make sure that everything's fine and pretend that we're normal, but we're actually living in fear. I think that was when, when I was like after high school and in college, and then looking at how my brother was really making a name for himself in the advertising space. It was when I was like, I also need to really try to push myself, because I look at my brother and my sister, they could do it. They didn't have overseas education and stuff. We're all just studied locally, went to sekolah menengah and all, nothing fancy, but they're so hungry because of they know what was going through, and then my hunger kicked in as well. And when you have that hunger, honestly, you could do a lot of things, and then you just feel like it's so rewarding when you do get it, and you keep making that change, keep doing things. Every day you wake up and you're just so energetic in doing it. Ever since then, I don't think there's ever a day where I look back and like realize like, I wish I've done that differently. I think I have come to terms many years ago with like my childhood was really the foundation of where I am today. I would not change anything about it. If I did not see what my dad used to do to my mom, I would have probably been a very different child. Right. So I mean, of course it was tough, right? But
and I always wonder, right, if all things being equal, right, what your life would be like. Would it be different? Would you be doing the things that you're doing right now? Had you not gone through the adversity that you have? What about you, Rozella? If you haven't gone through what you've gone through, how do you think your life would have been different?
I don't know, but I don't think I would be doing, I wouldn't have started True Complexion, right? Because the reason I started True Complexion was because I knew that there were so many other people out there who had stories that they wanted to tell. So many people that weren't seen and heard and were misunderstood because they were different, because they were in a wheelchair, because they had an illness. And a lot of times people like to focus on the problem that they have. Like they see my birthmark before they see who I am. And what I wanted to do with True Complexion was to flip the narrative, right? Allow people to tell whatever their story the way that they know themselves, the way that they wanted to be seen. So I don't think I would have developed that platform, and I probably wouldn't have the empathy that I have right now when I speak to other people about their problems and issues as well. I think because I came from that difficult place, so I understand when they talk about their difficulties as well.
And what the things that you've done have impacted other lives as well, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. Right, and Sandhu, what do you think? What do you think? If you're all things, what would just Sandhu be up to now?
Oh my God! Yeah, actually, I would. If I grew up in a stable family, both parents, are happy and working and earning money, so I would have been a spoiled brat. Like I have no doubts about it. But I think I wouldn't want to change. Right. Even though I was really unhappy about, when I was young, like I was just, I didn't like it. I'd rather just sleep in and live with my nightmares rather than waking up and going through another day of 12, 18 hours of fear. I wouldn't change it because I think a lot of the lessons that I learned were just things that I've witnessed before. Right. It was never really anyone just coming up to give me an advice, or I never had to read any sort of like book about how to be a better person and stuff. I didn't need all that because I lived a life that showed me all the wrong things every single day that I knew, just what not to do. So I can't wait to have start my own kind of family and stuff, right? Because I knew that whatever, despite me really not liking my dad, who passed away a few years ago as well, is something that I wouldn't change, because I felt like in some ways maybe that was just God's way of showing me this is what you should not be. Even when we ran away from home many times, but it was a week or so before my SPM, my full final SPM. is when my mom, I still remember this very clearly, like, because we were so used to running away from home.
Right.
Like, it just became so normal. Like, we would run away from home, we would go and stay in my aunt's place, or go and stay in my uncle's place. Like, there was one point in time, so I live in Melawati, and my uncle's place was in PJ, Jalan Gasing, so I had to, like, travel from, like, PJ all the way to Melawati, which was, like, half an hour. So my mom would wake up at, like, 5 o'clock, I would wake up at 5:30, and then at 5:45, we would drive, and she would drive me to work, because my mom works in Ampang as a kindergarten there, right? So we did that for, like, my entire Form 3, so my PMR days, I was doing that transit over, right? Then we still went back, Form 4, I was back in my, my dad's place and stuff. And then a week before my full SPM was when, me and my brother were at home. My sister was already in Singapore, she was working there already. And my dad got on his bike and he left. It was like on a Saturday at like 11 something in the morning. My dad got on his bike, he went off. My mom immediately came out of the kitchen and it's like, pack your bags, we're leaving. And it was just at that point of time I knew, like, this was it.
This is the final
This is the final one. But it was nothing different from any other kind of situations that we used to run away from home. But I just knew, like, this is the last one.
Right.
Like, I just knew it. So we packed our clothes. Most of it was kind of like in the bags anyways. We were kind of like always ready for it. Just packed whatever stuff that we could. Went away, stayed at my aunt's place, and and during SPM time, my dad used to come over to the school and say, come back. I was like, I'm doing my SPM, like, just not bother us for this time. But ever since then, we decided to just completely cut ties. I was 17, and we just parted ways for many years. And because I was the youngest one, he always used to try to find ways to connect with me.
Right.
But I always know, like, it's just his way of doing things. And, my mom was not worried at all. That she just knew that, I'm like that, right? So I've got, like, my mom calls her, I got a nickname with my mom and stuff, right? So we were so tight. And it was like about 5 years ago or so, 4 or 5 years ago or so, I can't remember, but it was like a random call from my uncle, and he was saying that, Jeff, are you free? I was like, yeah, what's wrong? I was like, I just want to let you know that your dad passed away.
I remember this.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
What do you want me to do, right? So he was like, well, so generally, like, there's like procedures and stuff. As a son, you need to do this and stuff. So I'm like, okay. Let me just call my brother before I let you know anything. So I called my brother was in Indonesia, and then he was like, actually I can't come back because my passport is being, like, my visa is being renewed, so my passport's not with me, it's in Singapore, we're doing some renewal and stuff like that, so I don't know if I can come back. And I was like, okay, what should I do? And it's like, you just go home and tell mommy lah. So, okay lah. So I went home, told my mom, and my mom was like, okay. And it took a while. And after a while, I just asked her, are you okay? And then she's like, it just feels like all the pain that you went through, and then it was just like this one phone call just tells you, like, it's over, right? It's finally over, right? Even though we've been living away from him for like 15 years, 17 years or so. But it was just like, wow, it's gone, right? So then I asked her, like, should I go for the funeral and stuff? So that was when my mom actually really just showed how strong she was as a person. It's just like, you know what, no matter what,
Your father.
you're still your father, right? So if you feel that it's your final send-off and stuff, then go ahead, right? So she followed me. My sister flew down as well from Singapore. We came, we went for the funeral, and we did the ritual thing where you burn the body and then throw the ashes into the river and stuff. Like, I did that. And the one thing I remember saying, it was, when you throw the ashes, you kind of like, you say your goodbyes kind of thing. And I remember saying, I thank my dad for, whatever he has done, good or bad,
Right.
is made me who I am today.
Wow.
And, just be at peace with it, right? Because keeping hatred over someone is just so much of energy.
It's what Nelson Mandela said, drinking poison, expecting someone else to die. I don't know, are there any questions from anybody? I don't know. But anyway, I was just thinking about, like where I am in life as well. Other than, the teenage years where I had to leave country to come back to Sarawak, it was, I've always felt like coming from a small town, no trouble, no nothing, that I could be more, right? And I don't know if I have gone through what you guys have gone through, whether, I don't know what it'd be like, right? I don't know whether I have your strength, you know, your mental strength to be able to do what you guys have done. You know, so I'm just thinking, you know, are just some people more hardy than others, right? I don't know. So okay, no, right. Maybe just moving on down to the maybe the final. Okay, but maybe the final. Okay, this question, right? So in what we do to survive, right? We go through fight, flight, or freeze, right? And for those who are in freeze mode, I'm sure there's some people who are like, I just don't know what to do. I'm frozen, right? What would you tell them to do when you're really like stuck? I'm sure you've been in that moment where I just don't know what to do. What then, right? Rozella?
I think different things work for different people, but for me personally, it was really like getting help, because I was, all throughout my 20s, I was actually really living a very turbulent life, and I was on a destructive path, and it was my friends who actually had an intervention and kind of pulled me out of it.
Friends,
And funny story which I always tell, well, not so funny, but funny now. On my 27th birthday, like the day after, I was actually in the clinic the entire day getting an IV drip because I was had alcohol poisoning. So I was there like for like 3 hours, just in the clinic, sitting there, and I guess contemplating my life. You know, like, is this the direction that I want to go down? Like, if I do continue living the way,
how long will I get to live?
Yeah, I would eventually kill myself. You know,
Right.
that was really the thought that was in my head. So what am I going to do? And I actually had the luxury to take 3 months off. So I quit my job because I hated it. I moved in with my sister for 3 months and woke up at 5 a.m., did qigong in the park with the aunties and uncles, and kind of just every day asked myself, you know, okay, what do you want to do? What's going to make you happy? What's going to make you change? And I've tried all different types of therapy, and some things worked, some didn't, and it was really a long process of like understanding who I am, why am I so angry and upset, what's the triggers, and just I think taking that time off for yourself,
Right.
And discovering who you are. And I think if you're in freeze mode and you can't do it on your own, reach out to someone.
Right. So it's good. So and so this is what I wanted people to hear and get from you. And you were saying friends, that's one thing. And you said what worked, what didn't. So what worked? Tell me what else worked apart from Tai Chi. In addition to Tai Chi.
Going to therapy,
Okay.
that helped me. You know,
Right.
I tried every kind, like your normal therapy, past life regression. You know,
Okay.
I've just experimented because I really wanted to discover what's wrong with me.
Right.
Or why am I feeling like this all the time? Why am I so destructive? I went to India for a meditation retreat.
Okay.
You know, so I did a lot of different things.
Self-love.
Yeah, to I guess
Yeah.
self-discovery in
Right.
that sense, because I think a lot of times you get so caught up in the drama, in the negativity, in the past that you don't know how to live now, or you don't know how to see the future.
Right.
So I had to untangle all of that, and I couldn't do it on my own.
Right.
So I really needed the space and the time and the help to do that. Yeah.
Right. And so I love that. What I heard from that, Tai Chi, friends, therapy, and you know, I mean, because of that, look what you started. Look what what you've done to help people, right? So don't have to get into freeze mode. There is these are your tools that has helped you move forward, right? Sandhu, when people are in freeze mode, what did you do?
Yeah, I had a lot of moments, right? It's like, just don't know what to do. Can I even make a name for myself? Can I be as, make my family proud and my mom, my brother, my sister proud and stuff, right? But I agree with Rozella. It's like, there's just no one remedy. You just have to try many different things. But I would actually like to say it's like the important aspect to know is that sometimes it's okay to be in that freeze mode.
Right. Okay.
It's just fine. It's there's nothing wrong. being in freeze mode. In freeze mode, if you know that you are in freeze mode, it means you know something's got to change. You know, if you don't realize you're in freeze mode, then I think that's a bigger worry, right? Then I think it really, you as an individual should actually try to maybe be a little bit more proactive with the people that you love and try to spot things that you may feel someone is not realizing what they're doing to themselves, right? So, you know, I had a lot of times where I just like, you know, we gave up.
Right.
But I didn't give up and just like, you know what, that's it. I'm
Right.
you know, I'm not gonna live tomorrow and stuff, right? I just like, you know what, I give up because I can't deal with so many different things around me at the moment. I just wanna, you know, just stop. That's my freeze moment.
Okay.
And I just decided, you know, when I'm ready for it, whether it's through my mom or through friends and stuff, where you then slowly start to be okay with it, and then you start to, you know, do something, right? But it's a long process. You can't just, you know, like tell yourself, I'll freeze today, but tomorrow I'll go, I'll fight, right?
I'll defrost.
You can't, yeah, you mean you can't. It's a long process, but just know that it is normal though. It's really normal. It's fine to be, you know, as long as you notice it, and make sure that you are surrounded by, you know, people who you think can be your rock, right? It doesn't need to be your family. You know, it can be anyone. You know, it can be your friends. You know, it can be people that you've met in, you know, before and stuff. It can be anyone, as long as you know, like, and you keep yourself connected with those surroundings. So, yeah.
So for me, it was last year, obviously, right? Pandemic, and we're still going through it. But last year, when everything came to a halt, right? And I actually enjoyed. At first, it was like shock, right? We were all in the freeze mode, right? And shock. And then I love the fact that I had time to think, right? And I had to be comfortable in my skin. Name of my other book. But comfortable in my skin and time to think and reflect what I wanted to do. So I appreciated that time actually, and to appreciate the moments when you're in frozen, but be aware that you're in freeze mode, and you know, and I'm thinking of a solution when the time is right? So you know, thank you guys. Thank you for sharing your life story. I think people, you know, we need to spend time to talk about these things that have helped us along the way, because you know, these are two fantastic people who've got great success stories in my eyes. So thank you again for joining us today. So my next episode will be in 2 weeks' time, and the next topic is from rebel to ... So what the ... is? So the two of my guests are rebels, former rebels, maybe still a little bit rebellious now, but you'll find out. So that's happening on Jenn TV in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for being with us today. I hope you got something out from today. Thank you, Rozella. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Love you both very much. So thank you again. You've been watching Jenn TV. Bye.